Alright everyone, welcome to the Book Pulse. I'm Riley, and this week we will be taking a look at N.K. Jemisin's The Obelisk Gate. So the main reason I didn't love this book as much as I enjoyed the first one is just how contained it is. Now, we're only really following Isun, who we were following through her entire life in the first book. We're also following Nesun, Isun's daughter, when her father kidnaps her and brings her to this sort of out of the way training fulcrum that's being set up in the north by a couple of the guardians. And those two are basically our only storylines that are really happening of any importance through the book. Now, the other thing I really enjoyed that we got was when Isun was talking to the other Stone Eaters as well as Alabaster, and she's really getting the important information and the important lore of this entire world. That's the one interesting thing I think from this book, because we never got any of that in the first book, so it really helped kind of fill in what was going on. Like, what was the deal with the obelisks? Why were they so important? Why were the seasons happening in the first place? And what was Alabaster's real overall goal when he did what he did at the beginning of the first book? Now, a lot of that gets filled in, and I'm really happy about that because I enjoyed the world and I wanted to learn more about it from the first book. Now, that being said, I feel like the second book really gets hurt by the fact that it is so contained. Isun never really leaves the underground city she's living in, and Nasun never leaves the training fulcrum that she's in. They don't leave, so the entire book is just contained into these two places. It's more the information that they're learning in these places that's important, but not necessarily these places in themselves being important. Not a lot happens in it. We learn a lot of information, but nothing really drives the plot forward until the very end when Isun is able to connect to what's called the Obelisk Gate, which interconnects all of the obelisks that are floating in the sky. That's really the big thing that happens at the very end of the book. But it happens in maybe the last 20 pages, so it really doesn't have a whole lot of time to sink in how impressive this is, because we just found out about this Obelisk Gate and everything like 50 or so pages before any of that happens. So it really doesn't give a whole lot of time to let what Isun did just sink in. But there is some sort of setup for book 3 where it's going to be a conflict between Isun and Nesun, because Nesun during this entire time has been having people try and push her into a certain direction. One of the Stone Eaters finally gets to her and convinces her that she needs to fight against her mom, and what she's doing with the Obelisk Gate. So it's very much setting up a conflict between the two. I feel like that conflict really doesn't matter because we really didn't get a whole ton of build up to any of that. Again, a lot of what I'm talking about just happens within the last maybe 20 to 30-ish pages. It's very quick, but the entire rest of the book is basically just them kind of sitting around and learning information. Not that that information isn't important, but it doesn't really drive the plot forward until the very end of the book. So I think I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5, just because I somewhat did enjoy it, but I think it's definitely not as good as the first book. I definitely want to finish the series just to see how it ends and to get answers to everything. I think the second book is definitely the weakest of the series that I've read so far, at least. And if anyone has finished the series, please do not spoil anything for me. I kind of want to go into book 3 knowing nothing. If anyone has read the series and wants to give their non-spoiler thoughts in the comments, feel free to do so, but just please try and keep it spoiler-free for myself or anyone who wants to read the series in the future.